Hello there guys and girls! Welcome to another tutorial of mine. As you all know, light plays a huge role in any movie, including the machinima we make in GTA 5. This is why I want to offer you another cool download that goes along with this video. A list of favorite props that has the 150 best lights and lamps for illuminating your characters and scenes. That way you don't have to search for them anymore and can get straight to work. If you want to support what I do for the GTA 5 community, check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/whanowa. You will also get direct access to my Discord and cool benefits like exclusive streams, behind the scenes footage and additional downloads, long before anyone else gets them. Now, let me just show you what lights I have chosen for your machinima production and how to use them creatively. But first, you gotta install that stuff. Installation. The installation of these lights is super easy, barely an inconvenience. Just extract the XML file called favorite props and put it into the folder Grand Theft Auto 5 menu stuff. Beware, this will overwrite the existing file in that directory. So if you already have saved a bunch of favorite objects in this list, you should create a backup of your file first. Alternatively, you can open both these XML files at the same time. On my screen you can see my original list of favorites on the left and the list of the best lights on the right. To add these lights to your list, all you gotta do is to copy all of these lines over to your XML file and paste them at the end or the beginning of the list. Or paste it right in the middle if you enjoy the chaos. If you are sane and weren't raised in a barn, you're gonna want some structure in this document. This is why I added some categories and dividers that indicate the type of light. And I also gave some props a name that is easier to understand. Then, finally, save the file. On top of that, I have built a menu map with all of these lights so you can easily preview and test them. You just have to copy that XML file to the folder menu stuff Spooner. You will also find these instructions in the download itself, so you don't have to watch this video again every time you forget how that worked. #alts homies. Then you can boot up the game, open up Menyoo PC and go to Object Spooner, Spawn Entity, Object, Favorites and find whichever lamp you need. As you can see, the dividers have clear names to help you in finding the right lamps quickly. Please note that many lights will only emit light when you are outdoors and when it is between 21 o'clock and 6 o'clock or 9 PM and 6 AM. But I've got some nice surprises for you that will allow lighting of characters even during the daytime and indoors. Many of these lights can be used as visible props like lamps or street lights, etc. However, the main focus here is illuminating your scenes and actors properly, and for that you don't want the props to be visible all the time. You only want the light source. In order to do that, you can change the opacity value of each prop from 255 to 49. That way you're gonna get the most brightness out of the light while making the object invisible. When you go up to 50, it is half opaque. So much for the general idea of these lights.
General idea?
Before we actually finally start at long last, let me tell you one more easy hack. You can easily remove lights from the list I'm providing here, so if you don't need them for your own videos, select any entry and hit B on your keyboard. You could even go and remove the dividers if you feel that they are a waste of space. This is how you keep the list clean and effective for your own purposes. So now, let us go through the categories in this list so I can explain a few more things about how to use these props. General light props. The first few categories are basically just filled with props that emit different colors of light. So in the white section there are many that give you a neutral color of different intensities and especially sizes, because sometimes you don't want to spawn dozens of lights to illuminate an area. In such cases a big prop like this hanger light can help you a lot. Then we've got the same thing for yellowish lights, which also have some varieties in the temperature of the light's color. But also the shapes are sometimes really interesting, like this wall light proves. Some of the props are available in multiple variations, so the hanger light I've just talked about also has a yellow tint as well as a bluish tint in the next category. These lights give you a cool color in your shots, so they're very decent looking except for a couple of props that are actually very intensely blue. Next up, but also very important, is the red light district, red light section. In here you will find some cool things to play with, which I will show you later. One outstanding prop is this arena light, which basically floods the whole area with light, but there's also this big red spot included. So if you need a lot of red light from just one source, try this prop. Last but not least, there's the tiny category with a few green lights. Generally speaking, you're not gonna use those very often anyway, unless you film a lot of sci-fi stuff. Special light props. One thing I never knew about were these cool effects lights, which I gave their own category. These things project patterns onto anything you want. For dance club scenes or some other nightlife stuff, they're awesome. But not only that, I was instantly thinking of some cool film noir stuff with these straight lines, like the shadows of the half-open blinds when you turn them 90 degrees to the side. Then, as I've just mentioned, there are some cool arena lights in here. The game offers more of these, but I figure they basically all do the same, so I favorited some that have a lot of concentrated light on one area. This lets you illuminate large parts of the map in one go. Take for example the prison area, which looks surreal with this kind of lighting choice. If you use day for night effect on this footage, you can get a very particular kind of film look. Lastly, in this category, you will find some lights from the DJ rigs. There's an insane amount of variations here, so I just picked a few of them. They are less useful in illuminating your actors, but could be neat as creative backdrops in some scenes, like a dream sequence or whatever. If you need more of those, just search for rig_DJ. Lights for daytime and indoors. I've got some good news for you in this part of the video. GTA 5 actually has some neutral lights that work during the daytime as well as indoors. These are pretty obscure to find, so thanks to my homeboy Voyevoda for pointing me to them. Like these arrows literally pointing to them, which is also the direction in which the lights are shining. They can all be found by the search phrase v_, sounds like a frog choking. Well, after you've spawned these lights, it helps to pitch them all 90 degrees downwards, so they will shine down onto the ground. That helps you in identifying the right light for your needs, even though they are all mostly just white-ish. An even nicer way to test these lights is actually by setting the weather to foggy, because then you can see the volumetric effects a lot better. The problem with these lights is that they're gonna show this arrow in Rockstar Editor as well, unless you set their opacity to 49 or lower, because that's when the arrow is invisible, but the light still shows, even if not so brightly overall. Interestingly, you can also decrease the opacity to 1, and you will notice that the volumetric spotlight vanishes, while the surface stays at the same brightness. I think this is very useful. For easier positioning, you can activate the feature Display Entity Surrounding Box in the spooner settings. That way you will get this nice cuboid showing you where the object is. Let's just teleport to an apartment interior so that you can see those lights indoors as well. Here we have a pretty dark apartment. Trevor looks well illuminated nonetheless, because I've spawned these 4 instances of the v_lurk gun light. If I reduce the opacity, the difference is appalling. You could then even attach these lights to your character and walk around with that. There might be light glitches depending on where you place them. In my example, the lower light might have clipped into the couch there. At the bottom of this category in the favorites list, I duplicated the big hanger lights in the 3 color variations because during my testing these also worked during the day and indoors, which allows you to light up a whole apartment with just a few props. The different colors suit different parts of the area. If you just want to highlight your characters, the smaller ones are better though. The stage lights. If you need special colors like purple or dark green to illuminate your characters, there aren't really any cool props in the game that actually emit that kind of light. Well, not by default. But you can fix that because Scene Director has a thing called stage lights. If you don't know what Scene Director is, please watch my other video on how to install the mod as well as those lights. The problem is that when you spawn the stage light through Scene Director, you naturally can't save them in a menu map, so you'd have to redo them over and over again with each recording session. But you don't actually need to use Scene Director for these lights, so I've included them in the download as a separate file, including some instructions on how to install them. Afterwards you can spawn them as props through a menu thanks to my list of lights. I have named them accordingly to make it easier for you to find the right one. For the sake of efficiency, I've also put them at the bottom of the list so you can access them quicker. The nice thing about those lights is that it saves you the hassle of making the actual lamps invisible. This is just the isolated light source. Car headlights. Since many of the lights you've seen only work during nighttime and outdoors, you can take a workaround and just spawn different vehicles to use their headlights as studio lamps. They work in any situation except for the blackout mode. It is important that you spawn them through the object spooner, not the vehicle options. Or else the vehicles will vanish.
J'ai découvert Vanish.
There are some vehicles with a nice headlight like the Penetrator. By the way, you can of course also use the red brake lights to illuminate your characters. And then there is the yellowish headlight of the mighty Cheburek. The same goes for motorcycles, where the Cliffhanger offers an even white headlight and Faggio has more of a yellow tint. These are the ones I can recommend. Unfortunately, I could not include these vehicles into the prop list because it is a different class of object. But I think spawning vehicles is easy enough for you to figure out. The advantage these lights have over the V_look lights is that the headlights are considerably brighter in most cases. But what's important here is that you let either Michael, Franklin or Trevor sit in these vehicles, because that way the headlights or high beams will actually cast shadows too, even if you switch over to another actor. For comparison, here is how it looks when the NPC uses the vehicle. There is no shadow. A big issue I see with this method is that the cars are pretty large for indoor use, so it could be kind of annoying when they knock over other props or actors in the map. Spawning a motorcycle is less invasive in such cases. And look! Motorcycles have the advantage that you can wiggle the light around a little bit. But using vehicles as studio lamps also requires you to make both the car and the actor invisible. Well, not exactly invisible, as we've learned. The opacity needs to be greater than 0. What's cool about the headlights is that the intensity of the actual light can be dimmed seamlessly from 1 to 49, because at 50 the bike will reappear. By freezing the motorcycle in place and deactivating the collision, you can then easily place it wherever you need in the apartment. In this situation, the light is too bright in my opinion, and it casts pretty hard shadows, which is unusual for apartment lighting. I think Trevor agrees with me here. Nonetheless, it's a great alternative to the other methods I've shown. Task sequences. Now finally let me show you some cool things you can do with these lights. You will always see the name of the prop up in the left corner. All of these creative examples here are making use of task sequences. I've made a huge tutorial explaining how they work, so I won't go into too much detail here. Blinking lights can be created with a task sequence like this. It uses an opacity task, setting it to the value 49 as you've seen before. The nothing task afterwards means that it will stay alight for half a second. Then the next opacity task turns the light off at the value 0, followed by another 0.5 seconds of nothing. It loops indefinitely, making the light blink. There are endless variations that you can use for this, as demonstrated here. As a Patreon supporter, you can download this menu map to check out the settings of all the task sequences in detail. Rotating lights are just as easy to make with the task snap to rotation and the relative setting. By changing the Z value here and activating the sequence, you can adjust the rotation speed of the light and then place it wherever you want. Of course, don't forget to set the opacity to 49. Right here, I've done that within the task sequence, but only to demonstrate that you shouldn't do it like that when using snap to rotation. Each task you have adds a small delay into the infinite loop, so the light does not move smoothly here. If I remove the task here, you will see it will be faster and smoother. Now that we have the red and the blue light spinning, let's move them a little higher to see the cool effect on Franklin's face. When they reflect on a character or wall, they look like flashing police lights. Extremely useful because the lights on top of police cars are a little too dim to light up larger surfaces like walls or characters. You could even easily attach those lights to the car and then drive around like that. I'm going to fast forward this process here because it took me a while to do so. Let me tell you that it is much easier to position while the light props are still visible and the task sequences are inactive. Once you're done, you can make the props invisible again and reactivate the task sequences. Collision on the light props needs to be turned off. And then you can take that whole setup for a spin. It looks much cooler than the regular police cars. Of course, with the LED lights, it would make more sense to have the lamps blink rapidly rather than rotate. But who cares? Building up on this idea of the rotating lights is a colorful carousel. For this I have placed multiple different stage lights pointed at Trevor. Then I rotated them each by 20 degrees until the circle was complete. Since every one of those lights has the snap to rotation task at the same speed, I can go to select multiple entities. Then select the lights and start their tasks at the same time. And then it gets even wilder if you just copy all the selected objects and change their yaw value by hand in the opposite direction. Absolute madness, but also glitchy as hell, so let's delete that stuff again. Also, there's a big caveat with this. It seems that as soon as you move the camera past the light source, they stop being displayed, and it will look the same in Rockstar Editor. This is exactly my experience when using the rotation feature of the stage lights through Scene Director. That's a very disappointing bug, but at least now you know how to work around it. And luckily, it doesn't affect lights that are static. By the way, if you point multiple stage lights at a character, there will be a cool chromatic aberration effect around the edges of the shadow. Duplicate them and you might get a rainbow colored shadow, depending on how far you are away.
Ha! Gay!
I've even found a way to make light pulsate, but it is a painful procedure because it kinda requires a lot of individual tasks. Spawn a vehicle and let one of the main characters sit in it. Preferably activate the high beams as well. Then you add the task change opacity and set it to 2. Now you could repeat this process another 38 times, but there's a faster way. Save the map as an XML file and open it with Notepad++. Then you just need to find the car name, which is the penetrator in this case. There you can see the task we just added. Just mark it like that with the line break before included and copy paste this 38 times. Then you can change each opacity value directly in the code in increments of 2. So the next is 4, and 6, then 8, then 10, and so on. Let's fast forward this. And once you've reached 40, you do the same in reverse. 38, 36, 34, 32, until you're back at 4. Save the XML file and go back to the game. Now you can reload the map and you will see all the tasks there for the car. Let's test this. As you can see, the light evenly pulsates in an infinite loop. If you want it to pulsate slower, you can just have 2 or even 3 tasks in a row with the same opacity value. So 222, 444, 666, and so on. Or you add a nothing task. For faster pulsating, you just use bigger increments and less individual tasks. Back to some based stuff. How about a bright searchlight that is attached to a helicopter? Well, just attach this prop to the vehicle and set the opacity to 49. A task sequence isn't really necessary for this, but you could also make the light flash rapidly if you like. This works with nothing tasks in between that are 0 seconds long. Or if you delete them, it will give you a strobe light effect. This works with any light, not just the effects lights you've just seen earlier. Here we have another cool idea that could be used for sci-fi scenes. The prop has been duplicated, so there's 4 instances of it, and each of them has the same task sequence with a snap to rotation task. It looks like an alien orb ready to lift off. The arena lights are a real treat for war scenes. Just spawn one of these sets. If you move them around, you can see all the shadows getting longer. You can move them horizontally, but also up and down. But of course you will have to set it to 49 opacity again, because there's an actual huge font over there. And if you pitch the whole thing by 90 degrees and move it up, it almost looks like somebody shot a white flare gun. I just have to stop here because there's just so many things that are possible with those lights. If you want to share your ideas for task sequences, please do so in the comment section.
Outro.
So that's about it for this tutorial. I know that videos like this might not be very beginner friendly, but I feel like I've already covered all of the easy stuff, so I kinda have to do these deep dives in the hopes that you are really enjoying them. Even if they are absolutely not worth it in terms of views. Like weeks of work for 1,000 clicks? Damn. This list of lights will surely help take your machinima to the next level, as you don't have to search around anymore and can quickly access lights for any situation. Trust me, I hate to do this, but here's my Patreon page again. You can do whatever the fuck you want, but if you want to support me, that would be legendary of you, since these videos take a ton of time and research to make. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. whanowa over.